Let's discuss Shakira Isabel Mebarak Ripoll on another lecture. Welcome to another lecture. I'm Professor Alexei, your host today.
Hi, I'm Priyanka, a doctoral student, and Professor Alexei's teaching assistant. Happy to be here.
To frame our discussion, Shakira is a Colombian singer, songwriter, dancer, and producer, frequently described as the queen of Latin music. It's important to understand that this epithet is not a mere nickname. It reflects a sustained bilingual catalog, record-setting tours across 5 continents, and a distinctive performance grammar that fuses Western pop rock with Middle Eastern rhythms and belly dance. In simpler terms, she functions as a cultural bridge, an elegant pedestrian suspension across which melodies, language, and dance traverse between Latin America and the wider world. Speaking of definitions, a crossover artist is one who migrates successfully between market segments and languages, appearing on charts like the Billboard Hot 100, while also dominating specialized Latin formats such as Latin airplay and Latin pop airplay. We observe that Shakira's authorship is central. She writes or co-writes most of her music, which functionally optimizes her control over sound, collaborators, and rollouts. On the philanthropic side, she founded the Barefoot Foundation, an education-focused initiative that builds schools and integrates nutrition and psychosocial support in underserved Colombian communities. This is not mere charity, but a development model aimed at long-term human capital formation.
Maybe a quick vocabulary check. When we say Billboard Hot 100, that's the combined US singles chart based on sales, radio, and streaming. And Latin airplay, or Latin pop airplay, are format-specific radio charts. Also, RIAA certifications are those gold and platinum awards tied to US sales and streams. I think that helps anchor the terms we'll keep using.
Moving forward, why does this matter? Shakira is one of the pivotal figures who normalized Spanish-language pop on global playlists and television stages, from MTV to FIFA ceremonies to the Super Bowl. Educators have even noted her songs in language classrooms and apps. Catchy choruses are apparently excellent mnemonic devices. Historically, many underestimated Latin music's reach, treating it as regional. Her decades-long presence across English and Spanish releases contested that misconception by empirical demonstration rather than polemic.
Isn't it interesting how, a chorus can make vocabulary less scary? I've seen classmates pick up Spanish phrasing because of tracks like Suerte or La Tortura. The beat sort of lowers the cognitive barrier.
Let's start with the history. Born in Barranquilla in 1977, of Lebanese and Catalan Colombian descent, Shakira's early career involved writing poems, then songs. She famously was told as a child that her vibrato was too strong for the school choir, which paradoxically hardened her resolve. After modest early albums in Colombia, the breakthrough came with Pies Descalzos in 1995 and Donde Están los Ladrones in 1998. A crucial bridge to Anglophone audiences was her 1999 MTV Unplugged, the first Spanish-language installment of that series, which US critics embraced. In 2001, Laundry Service arrived. 9 of its 13 tracks were in English, with the lead single Whenever, Wherever, paired with its Spanish twin Suerte. The album sold well over 15 million worldwide and anchored her mainstream presence in the US and Europe, while preserving Spanish-language momentum. In 2010, Waka Waka, the official FIFA World Cup song, became the biggest-selling World Cup track in history. This cemented a durable association between her work and global football spectacles. As a personal aside, a mathematician can appreciate rhythmic structure. Hearing ojos así and later the pan flute lines in Whenever, Wherever, I found myself mapping polymetric phrasing the way one might annotate chess variations. That curiosity nudged me into reading about cultural hybridity. This brings us to three big questions that will organize our analysis. The three questions are these. First, historically, how did Latin music rise into the global mainstream? And where does Shakira sit relative to peers? Second, counterfactually, what if Hips Don't Lie had not succeeded? What would have changed? Third, in the present, how does an artist sustain relevance amid algorithmic platforms and fractured attention? Let's proceed to the next point.
So, for the historical one, how do we place her alongside Ricky Martin, Jennifer Lopez, and earlier, Gloria Estefan? Did her timing with laundry service change the slope of the crossover curve?
Arguably, yes, though we must be precise. Gloria Estefan and Miami Sound Machine had already cracked the code in the late 80s. Ricky Martin's Living La Vida Loca in 1999 and Jennifer Lopez's Turn of the Millennium success primed mainstream radio for Latin crossover. Shakira differs in two ways: authorship and sustained bilinguality. After the Latin rock credibility of Donde Están los Ladrones and the historic MTV Unplugged, she executed a paired release strategy, Suerte and Whenever, Wherever, that institutionalized bilingual singles as a repeatable model. Mathematically, this is portfolio diversification. She kept her Spanish language growth while acquiring English language exposure. The result is a long arc that maintains US Latin chart dominance across the 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s, while re-entering Anglophone spaces at will.
Building on that, can we say her bilingual strategy reduced risk? Like, if a single underperforms on Top 40, it can still win on Latin airplay and streaming in Spanish-speaking markets.
Clearly, it's a hedging mechanism. We observe it in 2005 and 2006 with La Tortura dominating Spanish-language radio, and then Hips Don't Lie detonating globally in English with Wyclef Jean. Later, in the streaming era, Chantaje with Maluma and TQG with Karol G operate primarily in Spanish, yet permeate global charts. The bilingual equilibrium also has sociolinguistic effects. Educators report that Spanish learning benefited from the ubiquity of such songs. For the historical record, one must avoid the singular claim that she alone opened the doors. Rather, she is one of a small cohort who, at different moments, widened them and kept them open.
Okay, counterfactual time. What if Hips Don't Lie in 2006 just, fizzled? What would that have done to her global trajectory and the mega event moments that followed?
To elaborate, Hips Don't Lie delivered her first US Hot 100 #1 and reached #1 in more than 55 countries. It also placed her at the 2006 FIFA World Cup closing ceremony. If that single had failed, the probability of several paths would change. 1. Her English language leverage with US radio programmers and sponsors might have softened. 2. The chain of high-profile Anglophone TV moments could have been fewer or later, potentially affecting the velocity toward the 2010 World Cup song slot. However, La Tortura in 2005 had already proven extraordinary Spanish language demand, and Waka Waka in 2010 involved FIFA's global apparatus plus a Pan-African collaboration with Freshly Ground. In our model, her global career would likely persist, but the amplitude of Anglophone exposure spikes between 2006 and 2010 might be lower, possibly delaying or reshaping later opportunities, such as the Super Bowl halftime in 2020, or, in 2026, the World Cup anthem Die Die with Burna Boy.
And for Latin pop more broadly, does a missing Hips Don't Lie slow the genre's mainstream assimilation, or do others fill the gap?
Theoretically, diffusion would continue via adjacent nodes. Enrique Iglesias, Daddy Yankee later with Despacito's ecosystem, and Jennifer Lopez all contribute to sustained visibility. So the network's percolation threshold might still be crossed. Shakira's node would be slightly less central in the mid-2000s Anglophone graph, but her Spanish language centrality remains. In conclusion, the counterfactual trims her early global spike, yet does not erase the eventual multi-decade presence we now observe.
To shift gears a bit, present day, how has she stayed relevant with Gen Z attention spans, short video platforms, and algorithmic feeds?
It is worth noting three tactics. First, strategic collaborations that are natively digital. Shakira, BZRP Music Sessions Volume 53 with Bizarrap in 2023 set 14 Guinness World Records, peaking at number 9 on the US Hot 100 and number 2 on the Global 200. Then TQG with Karol G debuted at number 1 globally and top 10 in the US, and in July 2023 she simultaneously held the top 3 positions on Latin pop airplay. Second, eventization. A free Times Square concert in March 2024, a first-ever soccer championship halftime at the 2024 Copa America, and repeated FIFA moments in 2006, 2010, 2014, and 2026, created civic-scale visibility beyond normal touring. Third, resilient album cycles. Las Mujeres Ya No Lloran, in 2024, topped Latin album charts and produced multi-format airplay wins, including Punteria with Cardi B. The subsequent 2025 to 2026 World Tour became the highest-grossing Latin tour to date, with around $420 million and approximately 3.3 million tickets as of January 2026. Supporting elements include adaptive features with Raúl Alejandro, Ozuna, the Black Eyed Peas, David Guetta, Bele, and Anita. A selective catalog monetization via publishing rights sale in 2021, and philanthropic legitimacy through the Barefoot Foundation and policy advocacy, which enhances cross-generational goodwill. We can infer that bilingual releases remain a stabilizer, while choreography-forward identity anchors the brand in short video culture. Even tour disruptions in 2026 due to regional security concerns were managed with rescheduled residencies, including a 12-show Madrid run in a purpose-built venue, and record crowds such as roughly 2 million in Rio de Janeiro.
I'm curious about research gaps. How do we actually measure cross-language cultural influence beyond chart peaks? Like, what evidence would convince a skeptical economist?
Mathematically, we would assemble panel data linking language enrollment trends, streaming geo-splits, and playlist placements before and after major events like the 2020 Super Bowl or the 2023 Bizarrap session. Identification might exploit natural experiments, sudden platform playlisting changes, exogenous TV appearances, or market entry timing for singles across countries. Additionally, mixed methods, surveys on language learning motivations, and content analysis of user-generated videos could triangulate mechanisms. On philanthropy, randomized or quasi-experimental evaluations of school outcomes around Barefoot Foundation sites would quantify social return on investment. Finally, algorithmic transparency research could examine whether bilingual tracks receive equitable recommendation exposure relative to monolingual Anglo pop, controlling for artist size. To summarize, Shakira is a cultural and musical icon whose authorship, bilingual strategy, and choreography have made Spanish language pop routine on global stages, while her education philanthropy models long-term development. We examined three questions: the historical ascent of Latin music with her positioned among peers rather than above them, a counterfactual in which hips don't lie fails and reduces but does not erase her Anglophone amplitude, and present-day relevance maintained through digital collaborations, eventization, and resilient touring. For further study, we suggest rigorous measurement of cross-language diffusion and the social impact of arts-led philanthropy. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep learning.
Thank you, Professor. And thanks everyone for joining us today. That was helpful to think through, actually.